The book that I wanted to review is an amazing thriller I read on a road trip recently called The Peacock and the Sparrow. Amusing name, but quite a serious topic, even though the book is very enjoyable. It is a spy thriller written by a woman called I.S. Berry. I'm not going to give you away the rating right away at the start, but spoiler, it's really high. Amazing book. First things first, why you should read it. Before I even tell you what it's about, the basics of why it's a good book. Simple sentence is, it's a really beautiful spy fiction thriller. It's an unusual setting and has all of the brutal twists that you look for in classic spy fiction, even though, as I said, the setting is different and I think beautiful. The plot is not necessarily that simple on the face of it, so I'll explain it in a decent bit of detail. It's pretty understandable though when you're reading it, and it just flows perfectly, even if it's a little complex. The setting that I mentioned, not to leave you hanging for that, is Bahrain. And I think that's why it's so interesting. It's an unusual setting for a spy thriller. I mean, usually it's US, Europe, but this is where like a lot of spying goes on, even though, as we'll see in the book, it's not necessarily the hub that all spies want to be in. So, the plot. It is set in Bahrain, as I've said. One day, an event at the opera, hosted by the King of Bahrain, a spook named Shane. It's Shane Collins is the full name, but Shane is how he's known as book. He's at the opera with a classic spy event. There's the usual shaking of hands, glad handling, officials, royals, etc. But what catches his eye is a young woman who's there portraying, showing off, displaying her art. Her name is Amaisa. Quickly falling for her during and after this event, they develop a relationship which is at first discreet and then later on in the book public. Then discreet again. Things heat up for him, Shane that is, when the revolution kicks off. So Bahrain, autocratic monarchy, real life found in the book, and there was a revolution called February 14th. Shane is a CIA spy, is trying to get inside there, trying to get sources, work out what's going on. He has a source named Rashid. He meets him often. As the revolution kicks off, Shane begins to question his loyalty to the CIA and, by default, an extension, the King of Bahrain. The sights of the brutal put-downs of protesters, and, more importantly, what puts him off is a visit to an orphanage with Amaisa. Amaisa, as I said, an artist who he falls for. The relationship develops, and she takes him to this orphanage where she works. She handles supplies, gives them to the orphans, and seeing this, it does seem to bring him a lot closer to the struggle that he's been viewing through quite a neutral lens for the last 2 years, actually. I was about to say few, but it's 2. He's been in the country for 2 years. So, finding himself drawn into the conflict, he feels something's off with the opposition. He's deep in there. He's one with a good source inside the opposition, Rashid, who, as I said, inside the opposition, he's a senior member. And Shane feels like he's in, but something's off. CIA headquarters, his officials, including the head of station, Whitney, are telling him different facts. Things don't make sense with his knowledge. Whitney, that head of station in Bahrain, will become important later. So, revelations eventually come about Amaisa, his young girlfriend, and the young chief, Whitney. Then, the requests of his informant, Rashid, become more and more demanding, less of an informant, more of a handler. The relationship transforms. Shane is becoming more and more, I want to say, both dismantled and cynical. Dismantled in terms of his personal life is coming apart. He was already an alcoholic. His relationship is falling apart because he doesn't know if he can trust her, doesn't think he can, doesn't trust anybody else at his company, the CIA, let alone at the base. He's falling apart. The revolution is ramping up with weapons from Iran. He doesn't know what's going on. In his rage against Bahrain, his protest, and Bahrain, I mean the government of Bahrain, not the people. He loves the people, as we'll see. He agrees to do work for the opposition as a CIA agent, complete learner, of course, without the authorization of his seniors. Eventually, he transports something for the opposition that helps them take out the monarchy once and for all, and the revolution progress. But in doing so, he destroys something he cares for. This is the spoiler-free version. I'm not going to reveal any of the really exciting twists because they're part of what makes the book so good, but safe to say, he's right in not trusting people. His life does fall apart. It's extremely, extremely good twists. I'll leave it at that. What makes the book itself really special, though, other than just a good plot and an unusual setting, is how different it is, and that setting is part of that, but not all of it. It's an Arab Spring story, which is not especially new in itself, especially for spy fiction. But as I said, the setting of Bahrain is different, and the passion with which the country is depicted is really refreshing. We don't get loads of CIA. We don't see CIA headquarters at all. We don't get loads of intra-CIA stuff. It is about the people of the country. So as informants, Amaisa, the women he meets, the orphanages, the orphans he meets, the monarchy. The story is not at all. There's Whitney, as I said. There's Shane, and there's an admiral who will play a part. But the fundamental is there's only a few American characters, and the rest are Bahrainis, and that's what makes it interesting. And I think that comes across well because of who the author is. I.S. Berry, as I said, was an operations officer from the CIA who was stationed in Bahrain for 2 years during the Arab Spring, during this period. And you can tell she has a love for the country that translates into what I said earlier, a beautiful story. Because the way it depicts Bahrain is not just as a country in crisis, which it is. It also depicts all the beautiful parts of Bahrain, which I think is fun and impressive to do in a spy thriller, because she gets all of the other stuff done and still manages that. And I think not only that, the depth of the characters is also what makes it special. Shane, he is, as I said, an older CIA spy, but more importantly, he's an alcoholic. He's thrown away a lot of his life. He's ready to give up on the CIA. He's waiting until retirement. I mean, he's ready to retire. He doesn't want any crisis until story comes along and changes him. Seeing the people of Bahrain and their suffering changes him. He's by no means a perfect character, but there's significant progress in how we maybe respect him, in how his moral conscience has a hold over him, and that makes him interesting. Same with Almaisa. Almaisa is by no means this simple character. She's not originally from Bahrain. She plays a massive role in Shane's draw towards the other side, towards the revolution, but she also plays a massive role in the betrayal he feels. I'm not going to say exactly how, but there is a real betrayal there, and you'll see. And I think the depth of the characters, the setting, and the way she depicts it all is perfect. But the real kicker, the best part, is the cast. So it's not just that each character is good, it's that the author I.S. Berry has created so many good characters that join up in such a special way. So, Almaisa, Shane, Whitney, head of CIA station. Something going on with Almaisa. But above Whitney, supposedly, there's an admiral. Something suspicious happening with him that Shane is looking into. Whitney doesn't want him to look into that, but he doesn't know what the admiral is doing. Shane doesn't know what Almaisa and Whitney are doing. Whitney doesn't know Shane is working for the opposition. There is just this web, and you understand the difficulty that each character has unpicking the web. As well as that, I didn't even mention there's dozens of just weird affairs, stuff going on, stuff in this weird, isolated American base that makes the whole place feel very alive with very messed up, silly, stupid, corrupt people that you understand. Because, I mean, you feel like the author has just experienced these people, the way they're so vivid. And it's the cast of the embassy and the Americans in particular, but obviously the opposition and the Bahrainis, especially Bahraini monarch, and we don't see him directly, but we see his princes and his family as well. You can tell the dysfunction, you can feel it. And most of all, I think, Rashid, his informant, and Almaisa, his girlfriend partner, represent these complex different parts of Bahrain. Rashid was born there. He's quite a romantic revolutionary. Almaisa was not born there. She was brought there as a child, sort of, and represents a different sort of... You would think she was more the romantic revolutionary based on her background as an artist, but she does represent a more hard-cut sort of anger at the government, and they're different in ways that I think are very interesting in terms of Bahrain. On a larger scale, the perspective is really good. The Arab Spring, it's a great time for a spy novel, and the way it's depicted is great, clearly from someone who's been there. And I think the good thing is you don't feel as if it's too one-sided. It's a CIA officer writing it, obviously, but there's a real balance of what good the Americans are doing there. And there is Iran as this enemy that is supposedly funding the revolution in Bahrain, that are doing terrible things. There's a monarchy that are doing terrible things, and you feel like the Americans are supporting it. You don't feel like there's a clear good, bad, base standard for a spy novel you want, because you want the complex, you want the characters that are cynical. That's basic spy novel stuff. There's also, I think, an interesting angle, which is the case of insider corruption. It's kind of classic spy stuff, but not always. Sometimes spy novels are just Russia versus America, Russia versus UK, penetrating the other side. But corruption is a real part of it, and you feel the corruption on all sides. And it's really interesting the way you can see the pull of it, not only for others, but for Shane as well. It's not treated as if it's like, this character is corrupt, we must expose him. It's, this character is corrupt, but they can be useful. This character is not corrupt, but they're completely the enemy. This character is corrupt and terrible. There is no black and white, especially with corruption, which I think is interesting considering there is also a scathing condemnation of corruption within Bahrain, particularly, as I said, the monarchy, that comes out of this book and is very clear and you can feel throughout. So I think the point about corruption is also an interesting facet of the book that isn't the main facet. Most of all, though, the pace of the book is amazing. You cover a lot of ground from basic fermenting, sort of pre-revolutionary stage to all-out fall of the embassy and more stuff. So it covers a lot of ground. You get that full cast of characters, you get progress within them, and the pace just keeps going, but you don't feel like you're missing out. You feel like you get small moments with Almisa and Shane and their love developing. You get the reason why maybe Shane doesn't like this younger chief, Whitney, because he thinks he's young and fancy and been to the right schools and got to this place without earning it. Or maybe he feels that way because, as we see through the book, moments of Shane being basically an alcoholic flunky who is not good at his job most of the time and doesn't care about it particularly until crisis drives him to care about it. So it's balancing that pace with a really good style and a depth to the characters. I'd have to give it an 8 out of 10, honestly. It is amazing, it's a fun setting, it's a great book. I think if you want something new, you want something different, but it's still a spy book, and something especially during the Arab Spring, I would definitely go read The Peacock and the Sparrow by I.S. Berry. Enjoy.